Hello.
Good morning.
Morning, Laura. Hey, Gary. I got your messages, Gary, this morning. Don't worry, I got you covered.
Okay.
We weren't supposed to do this because we didn't finish Unit 4.
Yeah, because I've watched everything. I've tried everything. I did all right on
It's
the
okay.
test, except for this one where it's like you're supposed to edit all these features, and I got absolutely no clue. The Lego brick where we're supposed to do the first one, I was able to.
Right.
That took 3 hours to figure that thing out, and it was just
Well,
click this, it didn't work. Click something else, it might work.
So we didn't get to do the second part of lesson Unit 4 yesterday. So that contains a lot of stuff that'll help with that.
Okay.
So we'll get to that today, hopefully, since Vanessa just loves messing with my schedule.
Sorry, I know. I was like, oh yeah, it's tomorrow. And then I was like, crap, it's not on the schedule, the tentative schedule we'd put together. So we'll try to keep the refresher short and sweet. So
That's okay. You guys notice we have some friends with us today.
yeah.
So I guess you got the email about the refresher. So what we're gonna do this morning, Vanessa's with us. Yay.
Yeah.
And I do recognize Danica and Tamika from the videos.
Oh yeah, Danny's watching our videos from last summer as a way to help prep for leading the session this summer. So and I saw Danica smile when Gary said it took him 3 hours to do a thing. she can relate, but give us a positive, Danica. Doesn't it get better?
My sound is on because I'm on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it does get better. But it's a lot of hard work, guys. I know where you're at. One long ago I was there. But as you teach, you start right back at the beginning and you go through everything slowly. Like I taught this in a year. So just hang in there. You'll get it.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the hard parts about doing this in the summer is, unless we kept you all summer, our goal is really just to give you guys enough skills to be able to go in and start doing the practice problems and to do it at a slower pace over the course of the next 6 to 7 months so you can pass the certification then. It's not to pass the certification at the end of these 12 days. Kathy, I think I'm getting some feedback from you. I don't know if you're able to go on mute or, yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Yeah. So it's definitely, it can be a challenge and feel very overwhelming, but Danny and I are here to support you. And, Dinika passed her certification. We had another teacher, Sylvia Beard, who you'd say file open and she's like, wait, where's the file button? And you were like, oh, okay, and
Sylvia was a lot of fun.
Sylvia not only passed the inventor certification, but I think she has 100% pass rate in all of her, I think she taught it for 4 semesters, had 100% pass rate with her kids. So, or very close to it. So, it might be a little overwhelming. I will say, if you're working on something for, more than 30, 45 minutes, table it, put it to the side, like go to the next thing and ask questions the next day when you come in. Like, don't stay up till, 3 a.m. working on this stuff. There's something that either we haven't taught you yet, or that is very simple that you're just not doing that can like change the whole thing. So don't kill yourselves. Work hard on it, right? But don't, stay up till 3 a.m. trying to finish something. Okay, well, I was kind of trying to stall a little bit to see if anyone else would join, because we should have a few other people of our existing people. So let me just check my email real quickly and see if anyone emailed me with that they couldn't get in or potentially joined the Survey of Drones meeting, although I think I fixed that problem.
I will say while she's checking also, my wife made a comment yesterday when I was done at 1 o'clock. She's like, are you done teaching? And I said, yes. She goes, well, how come, when you took this class last summer or the summer before, you were there for hours and hours and hours? I'm like, well, because then I had to do the homework. And, so it's, I get it. I was there once too.
Yeah.
So
the thing about this is the only way to get better is to practice. Like I said, we'll give you guys the foundational skills. We'll give you guys all the resources to like at least know to ask questions or what questions to ask. But really the only way is to practice on your own. And then once you get into teaching it, I think we've all experienced this as teachers, is like once you teach something, you get better at it and you learn, and the kids will teach you something. You'll find stuff that you didn't know before. I wish Logan was on the call. I'm surprised he's not, because he would email me probably on a weekly basis and be like, oh, I found this new shortcut, or I found this new trick of like how to do something. I was like, that's great. I was like, we can't teach you guys all the shortcuts, that's for you guys to find and to figure out. But there's all sorts of keyboard shortcuts. There's all sorts of mouse shortcuts, different ways to 5 different ways to get to the same menu screen, and we'll show you 1 or 2 of them, but there's definitely, it's not the only way. And so that's why, as Danny's running this, he might ask you guys to show, how did you do it? Because how he does it, how I do it, and how you do it, they might all be a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. So it's less about memorizing the individual steps and more about like understanding the process and like, okay, I'm dimensioning, I'm, selecting a plane, I'm extruding, things like that. Like those are the key things, as opposed to, I went to this specific place to do this specific thing. So yeah. So for my people who are coming back, there haven't really been any changes to the curriculum, because they did just update the test to the 2022 version. So I have not had a chance to kind of take what's on the new test and build it in and see kind of if anything needs to be changed. I don't think the content has really changed on the 2022 test. They just they did less multiple choice questions and more like free response where you have to put in the actual mass and weight. And unfortunately, the practice test software, which is called Gmetrics, has not been updated either to the 2022 version. So, you're going to have your kids practice in one style test and then go to a different style test. So I'm going to put Tamika on the spot here for a second, because I know she has spent a long time with her kids in Gmetrics and then had her kids test. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of that process and the test taking and training them to take the test?
Yes. So the first thing that I learned, I was going off of the retest policy that's on Autodesk. That is not the retest policy that Certiport uses. So I was going off of a 3-day remediation period for a retest. And because I got that off Autodesk. And so I'm like, wait, why isn't this kid's test starting? And then I realized that Certiport does a 5-day retest. So that was the first thing I learned. And it was yeah. So I don't have 100% pass rate. I can tell you that. So my pass rate is about 60%, a little more than 60%. Another thing that I learned is I kind of felt like you didn't have to get any of the assembly type drawings correct to pass. And I had a kid who actually confirmed that. So, and what I did, I told my kids, because my kids didn't know how to test, if they got an assembly drawing where they're trying to assemble something, line it up, blah, 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 as the first problem, they would go in and sit there for 20 minutes staring at it just because they didn't understand. It's time to move on, keep going, sort of thing. So, and so what I would tell them to do, I'm like, you better get all the drawing files correct. Go through the test first, do all the drawing files, then go through and do all the sketches, then go through and do all the modifications and pick up points with the assembly files. So, just teaching them how to go in with having a strategy versus getting stuck on number 1 or number 2 if it happened to be an assembly file that they couldn't handle, because that was what we spent the least amount of time on in the class. But when you get into the test, it takes up the most amount of time for the kid. So just having that strategy for them, drilling into them, know when to move on. If you're stuck on something more than 2 minutes, move on, and just getting them to be able to test with that mindset of you do not have to get every single problem right. And my kids were going in trying to get every single problem right in the order in which it appeared on the screen. So we spend a lot of time just doing, test taking strategy, go through the test, get the easy stuff first, then start picking up other points in other areas. And if you're just great, then attack those assembly problems. So that's what I had to do with my kids. And they got much, much better. I tracked my averages. So it took about a little over 2 tests for the ones that did get certified. My school had a site license that gives you like 500 tests. So it took a little bit more than 2 tests for the kids who did get certified to get certified. So
can you describe your strategy with the Gmetrics? Because when I came to observe and hang out with your kids, how you had them work on it and then work with a partner and go through that.
With the Gmetrics, we tried going in working with the Gmetrics. They have a course inside the Gmetrics that they can do, but the files weren't downloading. So that was an issue. I had to deal with customer service. So we dropped that. So basically my kids work in partners or groups when they were practicing for using the practice test 1 and practice test 2 for the Gmetrics. And we just did it that way because we could not get the practice modules within the site to work. It just didn't work. So I ended up on the phone holding a lot and putting in a lot of help tickets with Certiport and Geometrics, but there's Geometrics is supposed to be changing and doing an update of some of that stuff, trying to get it to work right.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, so Geometrics, it's Gemetrix. That's a practice software that your schools should have access to, so you shouldn't have to pay extra for it. It's something that, your school pays for it, but it's a practice software for a lot of different softwares. And then Certiport is like the testing group as well. And so something Tamika had said a lot during the school year was start getting your vouchers early, start the process. I know that was for drones because it was,
this one was much easier
with the site license. Yeah. So you just kind of need to figure out like what your license situation is at your school. Do you have a site license, which means that basically like you just have a bucket and your kids just need to enter a voucher number and you're done? Or do you have to, like Dinika did, which was what, like a 3-week, 4-week process maybe to like get the kids, you got to get them voucher numbers. You got to assign them to an exam room. You got to like get them to log in and create accounts. And, and she's at a school where it was easy for them to just spend the money and buy the vouchers. That wasn't the problem as much as like a Title I school who's going to need to, go through, a month worth of approvals just to be able to buy the vouchers. So there's all sorts of different barriers. So start as soon as you get back in August, start asking kind of like what the voucher situation is for that. So
has that information been like sent to people above me? Because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. It probably has not.
Okay.
So if you can help me out to find out who your CTE coordinator is, that's who would be the person who would kind of be in charge of that, then I can help you work with them. But unfortunately, like it's very different school by school.
Okay.
And so it's very hard for me to say like, here's the rules or here's like step-by-step what you should do. Because every school is different. Like Zachary, y'all are kind of like a single school district, whereas like EBR is like massive and Tangipahoa is pretty big and they're serving multiple schools, and then private schools are different, so there's not like a rule book of like,
right,
here's step 1 through 5, but we have like general, like, okay, we need to talk to your CTE coordinator. We need to make sure, that because they will know, like, you're not the only person who's doing an industry-based certification, like
right,
someone else in Zachary's doing, some kind of testing. We just have to, I find a lot of times the hardest part is finding the right person in your district who's going to be able to help. Generally it's CTE coordinator, but it could be someone else.
okay, and have them contact you?
Yep. Just have them contact me and then I'll be able to tell them what you need. And then y'all can work together to make it happen. But I can help communicate like what the need is.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And that goes for everyone, because it can definitely be complicated. And then on top of it, you guys will need to be certified before your kids are certified. So you'll need to get a voucher for yourself to test and become certified before. And I saw Dinika laugh and smile because I came out to test her. I found out there's remote proctoring that we could have done. So I drove out to Lafayette for testing, and there's like official remote proctoring that's available. So if anyone, because you have to be proctored by someone who is a proctor. So I am a proctor. So if there's nobody in your district who can proctor for you, I can remote proctor for you guys, especially people out in funky Louisiana. So, Danny, did you want to add something?
The proctor, do they have to be like, what kind of certification do they need to be a proctor?
Just, I have the inventor certification, and
so you have to have that to proctor.
Yes.
Okay.
And the good thing about that is once you pass the certification and are a proctor, you can actually proctor any test that Geometric gives. So if you have another teacher at your school who's trying to get a certification in, I don't know, Adobe or something that Geometrics has, then you can proctor them.
Yeah.
So once, and anybody at your school that has a geometric, I mean, not a geometrics, a Certiport certification can proctor you. It doesn't have to be in Inventor.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so-
to become a proctor is really easy. Like once you pass your certification, then all you have to do is fill out like an extra little form in Certiport that makes you a proctor. So it's just the only like hard step is passing the certification and then setting up your account as a proctor.
Right. So if you have a business teacher who generally does Certiport certifications in Adobe or Microsoft or something like that, then they can probably set you up to be a test, to take the test and to become a proctor after that.
That's good to know. I did not realize that it could be any test. So look at that. I learned something. I thought it had to
My
be an
wife did
inventor
mine.
test. There you
She's a
go.
business teacher.
Okay. Well, there you go. I did not know that. And then I guess the other thing that is really important is computers. So I know Jean Williams has run this on a beta version on Chromebooks that they have. I would 10 out of 10 not recommend that. She really struggled with it and nothing was working. I think, you know, probably in the next 5 years, they'll come out with something that might work on Chromebooks. But you're going to need actual laptops or desktops to be able to run Inventor effectively.
Also, if possible, if you could set up testing stations with 2 monitors, if you have the ability, it works 10 times better, a lot less switching between screens. They can have the test open on one and Inventor open on the other. And if you can set that up, it helps the kids a lot. It really does. They're much more comfortable doing it that way, especially if you only have laptops. You can set them up with a laptop and just an extra monitor to the side. It would really help if you can do that.
Yeah, and if you have laptops, getting external mice, because there's a lot of clicking, right clicking, left clicking.
Yeah, I've talked to that with these guys already.
Yeah,
It's something to invest in.
Yeah. So there's kind of some steps that that you guys are going to need to take to make sure your school and your classroom and your students are set up, which is, I think I mentioned it on the first day, part of the reason why we have a little bit of that drafting at the beginning, because it's like, the drafting is important, but the main part of the class is Inventor. But if it takes you 6 weeks to get mice and screens and computers and all that, then you still have some content that's really valuable and contributes to the course, but can be shortened or skipped or, modified to get straight into the Inventor stuff. Go
Real
ahead, Gary.
quick, the monitors, are they required for doing the Inventor, or it's just better for when they take the test?
Just when they take the test. The problem with testing, and I'm sure Tamika could tell you, is that you have the test and then you have your program and you have to keep alt tabbing between the two. And it just takes up time and it can get confusing for the kids because you have a list of instructions of things you have to modify parts. And so they would go do one modification, switch back to the test, read the instructions again, switch back to Inventor, do another modification, switch back to the test, read the next instruction, because sometimes they may have to do 4 or 5 things on a list of modifications to a part.
Yeah, and they don't let you like minimize the screen and kind of do like split screen with the actual software.
No.
So,
We were
but for
actually
daily use, you're just using Inventor software, and they're switching between your screen that you're projecting and their screen, so really they have 2 screens as they're watching. Danica?
Right.
Vanessa,
So-
yeah, we were able to do the split screen, which really helped.
Oh, you were able to
Like
do
where
it.
they can see, you have the test on the one side and then the software on the other side.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we were able to do
Yeah,
that.
you
That
can
really
do
helped.
it. It's just smaller.
Okay, yeah.
You needed we were ended up with teacher computers.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that they even let you do the split screen. So, but I know Danica, y'all had a lot of problems even getting the second screen to show up, and
We had a host of technical problems. Make sure because your Wi-Fi, well, you were there, we tried to get them all started, and I could only test 3 or 4 at a time because things would crash and computers would freeze, and we had all sorts of issues. The Certiport people were helpful with that resetting, and if they actually get kicked out of a test, if you started on another computer, it starts back at the beginning. If you start on the same computer, you lose the time that you lost. But if you do it on different computers, you get your full time. So that's something that they told me. Also, let me think. Tamika, my passing rate was the same as yours.
Me too.
Okay, Danny, I know you're from robotics. That's why you're so familiar. A couple other things.
Oh,
I
that's
had
right.
seniors. Yeah, I had seniors. So by the time we got to testing, and really they almost need the first test just to, oh, this is how we're supposed to test, because they do the practice test one time. Well, I already did that. I don't need to do that again. And I didn't have access to the G metrics. So I kind of ended up making my own practice test and time them to kind of push them to work on being faster. Because I had the same experience as Tamika, where they ran out of time a lot and got stuck on problems trying to solve them. Do the ones you know, flag them. You might or might not have time to get back to them. So just to get them to go through faster, and to make them aware. Like seniors, the last couple weeks of school, they're already gone. So you really got to catch them on time. But because we had a lot of technical issues, it took us a little bit longer to get tested. So when Vanessa said, make sure you get all your stuff sorted out on time, make sure your computers, because we're using computer lab, sharing the computers with the computer teacher. That proved to be challenging because it's the software slow the computers down. And then we have 50-minute hours, and the test itself takes 50 minutes, but it takes like 5 to 10 minutes just to get them going. So then we would run over and she get kicked out of class. So just make sure you have everything prepared, ready, and that the students understand the need for speed. Because if you don't know it, move on, because it's fine to miss a bunch, you can still pass. But if you get stuck on a problem, then you don't get the points at the end. And yes, we did not see any, I don't think any multiple choice questions.
How many can you miss? Like, what's the percentage?
I think they're weighted differently, right?
I really do.
So kind of like
told
the
my
ACT.
kids that you have to get a 700. There's 30 questions. So I always tell them, simple math, you got to get 21 of them right. But I've noticed that when they get that 22nd one, sometimes it's a 723, sometimes it's a 730 something. So I do know that some of the questions are not weighted exactly correct, but they need to get around 21. And I did notice this year for the first time, you can apply for accommodations for your students through Certiport to get extra time. Have you done that, Tamika?
I was confused. What I did was when I saw the instructions, I sent the instructions to the parents because that was the paperwork I was taking to, was the paperwork for the parents. But then later on, and none of the parents applied for it. And then later on in the year, I did see that the teacher could apply. So this year going in, I'm going to apply on behalf of the kid because I just thought it was the parent that could do the accommodations for them. But I know one thing.
Too late too. So
yeah, one thing that I did do with my kids, because we're on the block, is I let them warm up for 15 minutes before they got into the test, because I told them, like, you're not going to warm up inside my test. So, and that helped them a bit. I let them warm up, real fast, 15 minutes right before the test, then get to a testing computer. So their little brains are activated and they're not just starting from scratch while they're inside the test.
So for a warm-up, would you just give them a couple of parts to do, or how does that work?
Yes, basically just a few parts to do for a warm-up.
Yeah, and as far as accommodations, Emily Hargris at PFT put together in the engineering design and development folder under administrative. There's a requesting accommodations with Certiport. She kind of put together some screenshots. She did this last year, so it may or may not be, you know, like, I don't know if they've changed it since then, but this is basically like you need consent from the parents. But I think this is what Tamika was saying, where the teacher is actually the one doing the accommodations. So you get the kids to fill out the account. And then did this. I haven't done it myself, so I can just say that this is this was the accommodation helper sheet. So yeah, so there is a way to do those accommodations. And then someone said something that I was gonna add on to. Can't remember. Oh well. Jean, what was your question? It was something you said, I think.
I think everybody answered my questions.
Okay. All right, yeah, so that's kind of testing. So, you know, step one is really getting your computer set up in your classroom, making sure you have mice and computers and the software loaded. Step two is working with administration to make sure that you know the process to get your certifications, vouchers, you know, whether you have a site license or if you have to purchase individual licenses, and then figure out your timeline for when you're going to test and who's going to be your proctor, keeping in mind I can be your proctor if you need me to. And then figuring out when your kids are going to test to make sure that you're not waiting until it's too late, because we all know testing starts in April for end of course testing, and then seniors leave early and all of that. So it's really kind of, in addition to teaching the class, there's quite a bit of like juggling of figuring out when that's going to be. And then, you know, if you're like Miss DePaula and they give you 134 kids, that's a lot of kids to figure out how to test, and kind of, you know, maybe all those kids aren't ready to test, right? So I mean, if you have a site license, it doesn't hurt to test them because it's free. They've already paid for the site license, but at the same time, like if the kids are just don't want to take the test and just are really not motivated, then they're just going to Christmas tree it anyway. So if you're on a time crunch, you might want to consider, you know, saying like who actually wants to take this test and is going to actually give it an honest effort, because testing 134 kids would be like a
And that
2 or 3 week process.
That site license is for G metrics.
It's for Certiport for the actual
Certiport.
test software. So Certiport is where they actually, you pay for the actual test.
Right.
G-Metrics is the practice test software. And typically your school will have both. I think you probably get G-Metrics for free if you get a Certiport.
Yeah, when you
voucher.
when you pay for your Certiport license, G-Metrics comes with it, your G-Metrics account.
And if for
Yeah.
some reason you don't have a Certiport license, you have to do a voucher for each student.
Yes, which is probably what your school is, because it's so small.
I'm thinking that too.
Yeah, I would doubt that you, because like the site license is like you buy 500 licenses or something like that, you know, so it's,
Yeah.
so yours is
okay.
probably individual. So if you have other people at your school, like Danny said, who do other certifications like Adobe or Microsoft or any industry-based credential that uses Certiport, and you can find that list, I'll put it in the chat where you can find that. But anything that uses the Certiport testing, if there's anyone at your school who does that.
And Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel would fall under that.
Yes, those are tested with Certiport.
And what about
Adobe.
service? Oh, I forget the service industry test.
Yeah, the customer service.
Yes, because I know we do that.
I'm
don't
looking
know
it
if I
up
can tell
right
you-
now.
Yeah, my wife does test that too, but I can't remember whether that's Certiport or.
Because if that falls under Certiport, I'm pretty sure we will have
Let's
access to
see.
that then.
So this doesn't have, let's see, Certiport.
This is something you can answer later, Vanessa. or I
Yeah,
can-
yeah.
this is
I'll look it up and see
I mean, we have months.
which tests are through Certiport. I know it's on the Jumpstart fact sheets. I just have to figure out the link for it. So yeah,
Customer
I will.
service tests with a different one. It's called NRISE or something.
Okay.
So National Retail Service Industry.
Oh, okay, so it might not be
That's different.
Certiport. Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's, I'll share this link, but and I'll also try to find a more efficient way to get you guys this information. But this is the basically the fact sheets for each industry-based credential. So if you see one on here that your school currently offers, then you can click on it. And you can see the Adobe Certified Associate uses Certiport as the certifying agency. So if you look, yeah, if you do like the Avid certified user, the certifying agency is Avid. So you'd have to obviously click on every single one of them to see which ones are Certiport. But if you know which ones you offer, like here's customer service and sales. Nope, I think I did the CompTIA. See, that's a Pearson view. The customer service and sales is, that's, you know, so what you're looking for is for it to be Certiport, but we can, I can see if there's like a more condensed and easy way to look for that. But yeah, so anyone who does Certiport, like that would be a good resource because the process is going to be the same for you or for them, you know, as far as like who the person is who buys the vouchers. Do you have a site license? How, you know, who's the proctor, all those kinds of administrative things. So, okay. I did want to also talk about 3D printers because I know Renisha, Kenyatta had emailed me asking which 3D printer to purchase, and I have not answered her yet. And so I was typically I recommend the Ender Creality, but since I'm not in the classroom and I'm not really up to snuff on the latest and greatest that comes out every year, I thought I'd leave this up to the group. I know Danny does a lot of 3D printing, so he might have some insight on some good 3D printers, and if anyone else has them. They are optional for the class. They're, you know, they make it really a lot of fun because one, you can 3D print pieces that the kids are designing. So Danny actually printed me my very own set in purple and gold of kind of the 8 core pieces that you guys are going to see come up. If you're in the training this summer, you'll see them come up over and over and over again. So he 3D printed a set for me. So it's nice to have them in the classroom. It's also nice to let the kids design something and, you know, print it. It's also nice to find stuff off the internet and print out some really, really cool stuff just to have around your classroom for the kids to kind of play with and be inspired by. And then the final project asks them to 3D print, but it's hard to get to the final project just because of the testing for the inventor test. So with that introduction, Danny, do you have any thoughts or suggestions on 3D printers?
Yeah, like you said, the Creality series, the Ender series.
Is that how you say it? Creality?
Yeah, Creality, or I don't know, I guess that's how I say it. Tomato, I don't know.
Yeah, Creality,
But
Creality.
The Ender 3 and the Ender 5 are really good. They're not that expensive. I think the Ender 5s are under 400 and the Ender 3s are probably under 300.
Ender 5 Pro was 309.
Yeah, there you go. So, and I know John just ordered one, didn't you?
Yeah, one for myself, and then the 2 at school, I had to go through whatever book they made me use. I don't know.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Supposedly at school, I'm gonna have 2 more. I don't remember what they
So,
ordered.
And once again, it depends on where you are. Some technology departments will say, you know, you have to order this one because it's the only one that's approved by the technology department or whatever. But if you have a choice, Also, if, you know, Gary does a lot as well, so he may have some input. Come on, Gary, you know, you've already 3D printed half the parts.
Do I know what I'm doing? No. All I know how to
Well-
do is draw the basics and then Autodesk, and then turn it into an STL file, put it in a slicer and upload it. That's it.
Right, and then that's pretty much it. We have,
Okay.
I think the
we
kids are
have
gonna love
downloaded
that.
and we print over 300 parts a year, probably. I actually, I don't think I told you this, Vanessa. I 3D print props for Mike the Tiger. I have some pictures I can share with you later.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, that's awesome.
Somebody who knows my boss has the connection making the lady that makes all the props and costumes for Mike the Tiger. So they came to us asking for a couple of items, and we were able to design and 3D print them for them. So some of the items I 3D printed were actually worn by Mike the Tiger. So
That's
it's kind of
awesome.
fun.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Well, and you can also use it as a fundraiser.
You can.
We had the kids were really into Pickle Rick from Rick and Morty, so we
Right.
3D printed pickles for like
The Among Us
two
guys.
2 months. We printed Pickle Ricks and they sold them at lunch and stuff as like a
can.
fundraiser. Lehigh keychains, we did earrings.
Oh, there's so much you can do with it.
Yeah. So like just aside from
Sold dragons, keychains, buttons that we 3D printed.
Yeah.
So we currently have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the regular like FDM or fused deposition model printers. We have the 5th one, the Mark Forge, that I wrote a grant for, which cost like $5,000. But we use that to actual print parts that are usable on our robots, for the big robots, and they're a lot more durable material. And then I have 2 of the resin printers that I got from LSU through a partnership program, and we don't really use them much because they're a lot of mess and work, and they don't really work for what we want them for. But if you were doing some type of fundraiser, they might work better depending on what you're printing. There is a 3D printing unit at the end of this brief, but we haven't gotten into the, we have a dual extruder, which was really cool, but then you have to start getting into modifying the mesh, which gets a little more technical, but it's something you can have a lot of fun with. And you can buy small ones, like really small ones, for like under $100 that print like a little 4-inch by 4-inch cube. And for some of the smaller pieces that the kids are making, like little small figurines and stuff like you're talking about, you can use multiple ones of those. One of the problems I have with the 3D printers is some of the prints, the bigger they are, they take a long time. So, you know, you have 5, 6, 8-hour prints. I think my longest on record is a 4-day print. One object, it took 4 days to print. So if you have multiple students wanting to make things and you have to wait 6 hours for every object, obviously there's a time management issue. So you can either limit the size or limit the print time, or you can, you know, start working on trying to get multiple printers. Like I said,
Question: if your printer isn't like an enclosed printer, will it hurt to build a box and put it over the printer while it's printing?
it won't hurt. An enclosure allows you to print with different substances. The easiest substance is PLA, and PLA, polylactic acid, you can print just about anywhere, anything. There are other types, ABS and PETG are other ones that a lot of people like to use for different reasons. You can maybe get away with ABS if you have a really temperature controlled room or an enclosure.
That's all Greek to me. Okay.
Yeah, I know. So I mean,
idea.
ABS is just another type of filament.
Oh,
So without an enclosure, a heated enclosure, you're limited as to what materials you can print with. However, unless you're really into it and designing prints for specific purposes,
I'm more worried about my kids my math kids coming in and wanting to mess with the kids and stuff like that. I want
I
to
got
keep
you.
it like safe.
that
you
makes
can
sense. You can buy like cloth enclosures or like Velcro.
I was just thinking about building a wooden box out
Yeah.
of plywood and put it over it.
And that won't hurt it at all.
Okay.
That won't hurt at all. It'll help. It's more, and my kids love watching the prints,
Yeah.
but I did take mine and put them in a separate.
I guess I
room.
could, if I wanted to get sophisticated, put a little like plexiglass little screen
Yeah,
in there. Or
yeah,
something.
they love, and it's mesmerizing. It's like watching people pressure wash. They'll sit there for hours and watch it, you know. And the smell is really good because polylactic PLA, which is the main thing you're going to use, it's a corn derivative. It's organic. It is biodegradable, and it kind of smells like corn syrup when it's printing. And the kids love the smell.
Kids
Can
are
I say
weird.
something about the printers real quick?
Yeah.
What's
Okay,
that?
I wanted
Go
to say
ahead.
something about the printers real quick. I got the Ender 5 like a couple of years ago for robotics because it was a budget one. And the fun part was they could put it together themselves, which they did. But the plates, because you have to align it yourself, we tore through the plates and it was really hard to get the prints to print correctly. So my principal got some kind of grant, and we have 2 of the MakerBots now that come enclosed. So, and they are automatically stabilized. I can watch the print from home completing.
Right.
And it was like 2 printers with a bunch of filaments. I don't know what she got some funding for it. Much more consistent in the prints. So much like quality wise, it's just a better project. But the Ender 5 is a fun one to start with. It's just with a piece of paper under the, trying to get the plate right. And that's really tricky with that one.
Right. The Ender 5s do take a little bit of more finagling, I guess you could say.
I'll get it in tomorrow. I'll have Danny help me.
And with the printers, you definitely get what you pay for. You can spend the MakerBots cost a lot more, a couple of $1,000 for some of them generally. But I started out with a MakerBot, and I have a friend at NASA, and I did not have a good experience with MakerBot in the beginning. And Maria Lott from NASA, I know Vanessa knows her. They got rid of all their MakerBots because they had problems with them too. But that's not saying that, they don't individually, they're not good products.
They're enclosed.
Right.
Yeah.
They are.
The problem with other students trying to touch things,
Yeah.
Right.
they're encased, and it's a clear plexiglass so you can see the print. So everybody can
And you
watch
can,
it without having to touch it.
Right. And that's the best part about the MakerBots is you get them that they come in an enclosure, which allows you to print more different materials as you go. But you're going to pay a lot more. But if you get a grant.
That's what I was
my
going to
thing
say.
is-
So everyone in this class should definitely apply for the QSM grant
USM grant.
to get one of these printers or multiple of these printers
Is
if
it
you don't
still
have any.
$1,000?
I think it went up to 1,500 or maybe even 2,000.
Oh wow.
Let me check real quick on the website.
So you can get a really nice 3D printer.
Right, or you can get
Or
like
get
4
multiple,
or
yeah.
5 of
Or
the,
5. And
But you
also
can't
when
order the filament with the QSM, right?
you can. So they actually changed the
Oh.
the consumables that basically, like, if it's a consumable that is like required for the thing to function, then it's they allow you like a certain percentage of
Of
it
the
to be
funding.
yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
let's see. So I don't know when it's going to open.
September's the
This is
last
when
day.
it's going to close. This is the last day, but it doesn't actually say the first day, but it's going to be sometime around August 1st, I think, is usually when it does. And let's see, it's up to $2,000. So it's $2,000 for high school.
That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah, let's see. Frequently asked
worth applying
questions.
for now.
Yeah. And when I first started, it was like $750 and a pain in the royal behind to do it. So I never.
Well,
did
so
it.
I was on the team that helped rewrite the grant
Oh, so I can just have you write the
process.
grant. Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah. Except I'm also on the review panel, so not
Well, then
good.
it should be a perfect score.
Let's see. Yeah, anyway, it's, I know 2000 is for the high school. It's not a very good website. I'll have to tell her.
There's also the Deborah Rochelle Foundation, which is how I got my Markforged, which is a $5,000 grant.
So question, normally a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
the time
There you go.
y'all extend that grant because you don't spend enough money. So I guess the review board's pretty lenient on how they review it if there's not enough grants going.
No, I think so we have, I mean, there's a rubric, there's a pretty strict rubric that
Okay.
it might be posted. I don't know if it's posted.
So can I have you pre-review it?
Yes, I can pre-review it for sure.
Okay.
I can give you feedback.
There you
But yeah, so it's $2,000 for 6 through 12.
Okay, that's good.
But I thought we published the rubric. Because I mean, so to answer your question, like we do,
Oh, I
like
see.
we're not more
10%
lenient.
essential consumables. So that would be like possibly up to 200,
Yes.
which is quite a bit of filament. So
Yeah.
That's like 8 or 9 rolls.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just bought a roll for $20. So
yeah, so 10% of those essential, and that was something that we worked to add, because we're like 3D printer, and that was the example. It was like a 3D printer, like yes, the filament's consumable, but like if you don't have it, you can't use it.
3D print, like it's a piece of
Right.
metal.
So anyway, there's a rubric that we use to grade it, and we either like, I mean, it's pretty like specific, and so you either do it or you don't. And so a lot of times, I mean, the grants that come in, they're either like really good or really bad. And like they just clearly haven't like read the rubric or provided the information that we're looking for. So it's not that we grade hard or don't grade hard, but it's just based on the grants that come in. And then if there's still money left, we'll open it again.
I'm guessing part of that is the purpose of it. So then you can go into the engineering design class and have purpose behind your grant. Well,
so for some reason, the QSM people, they don't want you to say like, I need these 3D printers for my engineering design and development class. They want you to say, I need these. Yeah, they're like, I need these printers for this specific project and this specific
so it could be like the
gonna...
end of the year project for the engineering class, but it's not specifically the class.
Right. Or I would even, because it is originated in math and science, they want everything tied to math and science standards. So what I would do is I would do one of the earlier inventor lessons that has a little bit of geometry, where you're talking about like planes, and pick a standard or two related to spatial reasoning and geometry, and then say like, hey, in unit 4, we're going to learn how to draw these things in Inventor with the top plane, right plane, and whatever. And to visualize this, the kids will need to 3D print these parts. And so they want it very project specific, which is ludicrous, because you're asking me to spend $2,000 for a project that's going to last 2 weeks. Like, but what I am trying to tell you is I'm going to use this over and over and over again for multiple projects, that they don't want that. And so that's where most people fail, is they want it for like a very specific purpose, and they want it to hit standards. And you have to say like, here in this lesson is where the standard is being met. And so I can help you guys with that. But if you can, I mean, there's lots of opportunities to tie it to geometry standards and spatial reasoning. And
they want a bunch of BS to back it up. I got you.
Yep. It's not BS. It's just because it's coming out of math and science, it's got to be tied to Louisiana.
I might even be able to do the science teacher. She wants to do like the evolution of like maybe human skulls and stuff like that.
Or you can 3D print DNA things, so you just have to have it, which is really cool, because you can actually put one of the balls like inside the DNA helix thing and print it all together. So you don't put the ball in after the fact. The ball gets printed like inside
as part of it.
As part of it. It's pretty cool. There's print files you can find online for that. But yeah, so you can write the grant for a science project that's unrelated to engineering design and development, but then use it so, but that's the number one thing that the rubric is written for a specific project aligned to specific standards for that project. And some people will just say like robots, like I need a robot, and like, great. And they tell you all about this robotics class, and it fails because they don't tell you like specifically how
specific
it's
project.
gonna, yes, which is just stupid, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So, but yeah, so everyone in this room should apply for the QSM grant. I think except Danica, I don't think private schools can apply.
Mhm.
Sorry.
That's the usual story.
Yeah, usual story. So, okay, yeah, so we kind of, we've got the realities as a budget option, MakerBots as a higher end option for the printers. MakerBot is really cool because they have so much educational support. I don't know what the support looks like for the Crealities, but the MakerBots, I mean, they've got entire
The
YouTube
MakerBot
channels.
Academy. They even have
Yeah.
a teacher certification for MakerBot.
They have a teacher certification. So they're really, really hardcore into the education field. So I will say that it might be worth the money for that one, just for the sake of the support system for the kids to go research it on their own. There's a lot out there. And then the little certification. So, well, those were the main things I wanted to talk about and just get some input from our existing teachers. Ms. Tapala, do you have anything you wanted to add as far as teaching the stuff? And I know you had big classes.
Just for this year, I don't know how many total students I have, but it will not be less than hopefully 80 and above, unlike from last year. But I don't know,
Okay.
So I'm still, and then I'm thinking of, like you said, like the certification for the exam. So when can I do that? Because I haven't done it last year.
Okay, yeah, so we can work together to get you certified. So Ms. Tapala, there were multiple teachers at the school certified, so she was able to have someone else proctor the tests for the students.
Yeah.
Because we weren't able, because we had a little bit of a delay because Tiny Human decided to come early, and so I wasn't able to sit with Ms. Tapala and get her tested, and the year got away from us.
Yeah,
But
and
yes.
somebody else like tested my students.
Yeah. So yeah, so just email me and we'll coordinate a time. I can help you or I can help proctor that for you.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
So yeah. Okay, well, if does anyone who taught it last year have anything else they want to add, either about testing or teaching the class or 3D printers or anything? Danica, I saw you raise your hand.
Yes, I have one thing. With the drawing, the sketching in the beginning, they kind of get burned out on that. So I did a little bit of 3D printing and the first unit of that, and then I finished out on paper just to give them a break. One other thing, around Christmas time, our secretary put out a Christmas ornament coloring contest or something to that extent. So I had them design, with the knowledge they had at that time, a Christmas ornament, and we printed several of them. So that was kind of a fun little assignment to get them to do something that we could print, and just to kind of break just the unit after unit, assignment after assignment. And they enjoyed doing that. So just a little fun.
So I mean, what Danica is saying is kind of like, instead of doing like 1, 2, 3, maybe doing like 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, or something like they're kind of throwing them in there in a little bit different order. We've gotten that suggestion before, and I'm not changing it because so many people struggle to get computers and to get set up, especially their first year teaching it. So from the, flow for the, as we're doing trainings with new people, we're like, okay, here, do 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, because so many people are struggling to get their computers and their labs and everything set up. But, if if it's your second year teaching it, or you're at a school that's got their life together and you've got the computers and everything like ready to go, like you definitely can kind of alternate those lessons or
It took
sprinkle them
me
in.
15 months to get 3D printers.
Yeah. So, a lot of schools, so it just really depends on your situation, but like, yeah, everyone complains about the paper pencil drawings, and
Even I complained.
yeah. I complain. Nobody likes it.
So if you did one,
I hate it.
if you didn't do two, do you have enough info to be able to do lesson 1.1 in Inventor?
No, I did unit 1, unit 2, and then
Okay,
the first.
because I would think they
and
would
then
need
Okay, yeah.
multi-views.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're right. I guess you would have to.
And then
yes, I
unit
forgot
3, I
unit one's just
struggled a lot
sketching.
with, so I wouldn't mind coming, or lesson 3, I wouldn't mind coming back to that one, because that one seemed like
Yeah,
the difficulty ramped up a lot. And I think if I had worked some more with like seeing the 3D models and stuff, I think I would have been able to visualize it better, if that makes sense.
yeah. So I did misspeak. I forget that lesson 1's just sketching and multi-views are 2. Yeah. So lesson 1, lesson 2, and then you can go to unit 4.
I
And
kind
then
of
come
like
back
that.
to
I think that
visualization.
would be a good change for, like you said, if you don't need to do it to
Right.
do that.
Right. And we really like cut back a lot on the visualization. So this class is modeled off of CM 1020 at LSU, which I taught for 2 semesters. And I modeled it off of a teacher who taught it. And we did like missing views, missing lines, like it was like hardcore crazy. And like we cut out a lot of that and just have like kind of one missing view, one missing line that was like pretty straightforward. But I was like, oh man, it was a lot. And it was
Because
definitely
I
not
was
good
struggling at
it.
first, so I know my kids are gonna
But see, you'll be surprised. You'll have some kids who just like get it.
catch it. Yeah.
But for the most part, it is the most torturous unit. So I have some teachers who just skip unit 3 as well. Like they're just like, I don't feel like it's strictly
It's pretty
necessary.
hardcore, and especially if
Yeah.
it's not tested, then I could definitely see wanting
Yeah.
to skip that.
Yeah. But then if they're going to see it in college, right, then it like,
I get it, but again, for this to survive, you need to get those
Correct.
tests in. So,
correct.
and then once I get more
Correct.
fluent in it, I can be able to teach it better.
Correct. Yeah. So like unit 1, 2, then get into Inventor, get into 3D printing, come back to visualization. Maybe if Emily were on the call, I think she was like, yeah, I skipped unit 3. She's like, at first she wanted to skip units 1, 2, and 3 because she was already Inventor certified, had been teaching Inventor for a while, but wasn't having great like pass rates, I think, or just didn't, she was having decent pass rates, but she didn't really have like a curriculum. She was just teaching kind of based on her experience as a industry professional. And I'm sure if she listens to this, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but so kind of having that structure, and she skipped it, but then she ended up going back to it because she realized her kids really needed that foundation. Like it was so much more helpful when she taught it, and they did have those kind of sketches and drawings. So, you'll kind of find what grooves and what works for you. This class is a little bit different than some of our other classes because really ultimately the goal is not to like necessarily get through all of our curriculum, but to pass the test. But if you go through our curriculum, you'll have a pretty good foundation to pass the test, but ultimately like the goal is to pass that test. So if you need to skip stuff or go faster or slower in some parts, or supplement because your kids are missing a certain piece, that's definitely important, but give us that feedback, because then we can make it better.
Question, like whenever y'all like giving like this lesson 1.1, it'd be nice if y'all say lesson 1.1 important for testing, or like,
So-
just whenever we're skimming over it, trying to figure out what can we skip, like can't skip this.
So you should see in the you'll start to see it a little bit more. I don't know if I was good about it in the first couple of units, but you should start to see things in the teacher notes as you like. So unit 1, 2, and 3 is not tested because it's all paper pencil sketching. But when you get to the teacher notes, you should start to see stuff that says, let's see.
Yeah, I see tested keywords. Yeah.
Where's I see that
This
says
is a
there's-
tested question.
Oh yeah, this is a tested question. And then, oh yeah, down here, this is a tested question. So I've tried to kind of indicate, and when I say it's a tested question, I mean, I can't guarantee you're going to get it on your test, right? But it's a question that has come up often, and it's a skill that
And we can expect all these that say this is a tested question to be on the practice stuff, or do we need to create like a document of all the tested questions?
No, so it should be on the practice test. It'll be on the quizzes that they have to take. It'll be part of the homework that they have to do, and it should be on at least some of the practice tests. Maybe not all of them. And it might not be like that exact skill, right? But the idea here, like for this one, select the plus sign next to the origin on your model and select the y-axis. So kind of, this is basically understanding that you can go to your model menu and find your axes, right? So like that's the tested part of it, is like using your model menu to identify an axis, right? So it might be asked in a whole bunch of different ways. And again, this was written when there were quite a bit more multiple choice style questions, where they might have said, look at this part, tell, what axis is this XYZ thing or ABC thing happening on, right? And you would have to go to your model menu and see which axis it was happening on. So there's a little bit fewer questions that kind of ask for that, like more. You'll see on our practice tests that we have, which are just taken from Geometrics, that there are just some knowledge, what I call like rote knowledge questions. And I think a lot of those have tended to go away. So as we update the curriculum and as Geometrics updates the practice test over the course of this year, we'll be able to kind of update some of those. But if it says that it's a tested question, the kids will be exposed to it at least twice, either through a homework, a quiz, or through the practice test. And there may be things that are on the new style of the test that are not necessarily, 100% reflected in all of the practice questions. But that's something I also want to mention as a test strategy for your kids. Like, you have to tell them they will come across something that they have not been taught. Like 100% the test will include questions of things that they've never been taught. Skip it, come back to it at the end, but use common sense, right? Like if they're asking you to extrude cut on an angle, well, you know how to extrude cut. Maybe you've never done it on an angle, but surely there's a setting in my extrude cut that might help me do this at an angle. And like, if they just kind of, take a second to breathe and think about it, they can probably figure it out.
But this is something you would want to come back to at the end, because it's going to take more thought. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, like skip it, come
like
back.
you might be able
to
to work through it, but you want to work through it whenever you've done everything else. Right.
And so the better you get an inventor, the better you'll be able to just like look at something and say like, this, I know the basic skill, but I don't know like how to cut it at an angle. Well, sure enough, there's an angle feature, that we just haven't like used in any of our practice problems.
And one thing with,
yeah,
with doing test taking strategy with my kids, and the thing that I noticed about the test, if you teach your kid to focus on the little blurb that they're given of what to do, literally there are instructions in the little blurb and hints of what they're supposed to do and where to find it. Like one of the questions may be place a certain view, and literally if you just look at the screen that opens up, it'll have place views. And so teaching them how to read the little direction and pay attention to what it's asking, because a lot of times the feature that they need is literally in the words. If they just read the word and look at the screen or look at the ribbon above.
The number one skill I try to teach is read. I won't even help a student until like, did you read the instructions? Well, no. Well, I'm not helping you because you didn't even read the instructions. So you might not need my help. I'm not helping you until I'll come back after you read the instructions.
because a lot of them will want to go to the before and after picture and do it. But I'm like, if you just read it, it literally tells you what feature to pick and kind of where it is. And then another thing that I found, there are only 2 versions of this test. A lot of the questions are in the practice 1 and 2 that's in the folder, but if your kids know area and perimeter and stuff, some of the questions, they don't even have to do the modeling if they just recognize that the area of a rectangle, whether it's extruded or not, is just length times width. So giving them some of those little tricks to save time help the kids as well, you know, realizing this is just the area question. You know, the length is 5, you know, the other side is 3. So you don't even have to extrude and go to the, you know, tool and inspect measure to do that. So it's those, some of those type of things that are in the test as well.
Yeah. It's so rude. Like, why would you ask me to do these 5 things and then I really didn't even have to do those 5
ask me
things.
the area of a cube.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, find the area of this surface that's part of this cube that we're asking you to build. Like, and most of the inventor test is not creating parts from scratch. Actually, I would say that I don't think there's a single question where they ask you to create something. There was one. Yeah. So,
yeah, there's one question where they actually have to create something, but it's not having them to create. It's really making them pick the right template.
yeah.
It's picking a different
to
template
create. Okay, yeah.
to create it. Yeah. I mean, it's a real simple creation, but if they don't pick like it's like a stainless steel millimeter, something like that template, then they'll get the answer wrong because it's a very easy question.
Yeah. But so most of it is that you start with something and they say add a hole that's this diameter in this location, and or change the length of this thing and what's your new perimeter, you know, things like that. So it's, you know, as a training, you guys are learning how to start from scratch because, well, you got to start with something, right? So you guys are learning how to start from scratch, but on the test, it'll be mostly modifying. So as you progress and as you get better in Inventor, you'll see that, you know, a lot of what we do, like the Lego thing, Gary, that you were struggling with, it's like you started with something and then we ask you to modify it and change these different things, because that's how the Inventor test is going to be. So, all right, well, I know that we've taken up kind of a lot of time of our new trainees, because I know Danny said y'all were running a little bit behind yesterday. So he was like, oh, I'll catch up today. And then I was like, hey, curveball, we've got this like all call meeting. So if there's nothing else,
there was a lot of good information. Thank y'all.
Yeah. This is always a helpful session, I feel like, to learn from the experts who are in the field, because every year that we go past, I feel more and more out of touch with like what's actually happening because they change so fast. So, yeah, it's helpful to me as well to learn these things. So I guess I'm gonna, I guess I can't stop the recording. I must not be logged in. I was gonna try to, Danny, do you have host powers to pause the recording or stop the recording? No. Hold on, let me see.
Danny,
if I
you're
can...
muted. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, let me,
No, I'm sorry. I can start the recording. I just can't stop it.
okay, hold on. I think I'm gonna leave and try to come back as the host so I can stop the recording and then start it again so that I can have this as an independent recording from y'all's class. So just give me just a second and I'll be right back.
So Danica, how things are? You're at Lafayette Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember. Y'all's FTC team did well last year.
Junior high does really well. But I'm by myself running everything. Junior high, elementary, high school. So, and then I had the EDD on top of that. So